Hi, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of part 1 of our episode on death, the first half of the End of Evangelion. So in our last part...
Or air.
Yeah.
Or air. Or air.
Yeah.
Or earth. Fire. Water. Go planet. No, I'm just joking. Anyway. That's not even the right order. Anyway, so we're resuming last part. Asuka had just had an epiphany and realized her mother was there all along, and now she's ready to kick some ass and save the day. I think she's gonna succeed. I have a good feeling. There's a heavenly choir playing. The song's called False Regeneration, but I'm sure that doesn't mean anything. And so we're ready to go. The animation on this part, this beginning part here, with Ava Unit 2 rising out of the lake is so gorgeous and so powerful and so empowering. I cannot get over it. I cannot get over the water falling off the ship, the way it sort of breaks apart as she lifts it, the realistic physics, and then she just chucks it at the tank. It is so cool. Do you like this moment? Do you think it's lame? I'm just wondering.
What do you mean? I don't think it's lame. This is like one of my favorite. Yeah,
I know you don't.
Like cinematic arts right here. They're beautiful. It's very. It gives you an extremely intense feeling. And completely makes you side with Asuka in like 2 seconds.
It does. I think this is the first thing I saw from Evangelion. Is someone had this as an avatar or something, a GIF of her. Not this shot. I think it's the one where she's flying through the air and she punches something in the face. I think someone had that as an avatar in a forum or something. I'm like, what the hell is that? That's so cool.
If you didn't like Asuka, this is a moment that makes a lot of people appreciate her. And throughout the rest of the movie, I think she's fairly likable. The thing is that it's like in the worst circumstances, she's finally able to do something that is extremely competent and enjoy herself and actually be really happy. And it's just infectious to watch the character acting of the way that they animated Asuka and her expressions and the way that she just looks visually. And it's just so having so much fun for the first time piloting an Ava unit. It's like, it's been so miserable for everyone up until this point that it gets you to kind of like be like, you go, girl. You go, girl.
She goes from damsel in distress to girl boss. Girls do it better, or whatever the saying is.
I've heard people say like, oh, isn't it so lame that, she's just taking out JSSDF helicopters and whatever. And I don't agree. I think that the missiles and the helicopter stuff, it's like really awesome. And even if it's not an angel, right? Like she still goes up against the Ava series, which we'll talk about soon. And I think she's just cool the whole time and is very accomplished. Like for the first time in the series, I think she's really met her full potential and is as good of an Ava pilot as she wished she could be up to this point. So
so the name of the animator who did these scenes is Mitsuo Iso.
At least the stuff with Asuka and the MP Avas. So
very cool stuff. Very awesome.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is that with Asuka versus the MP Avas, it's like one of the most legendary fight scenes, and we're not quite there yet, so we'll just like hold off talking about that. But for now, I think that this is just such a cool moment for Asuka's character. You wrote down that she's like a holy warrior, and I kind of agree with that. So
almost immediately after this action sequence, Seele is like, that troublesome Evangelion, time to fight fire with fire, because they're just such reasonable villains. They're not cartoony, they're not ridiculous or anything. They are just totally serious leaders of industry. I'm being very sarcastic in case anyone missed that.
On the entry plug, they have Kaoru written across the entry plugs.
So
into
maybe they have
the
a dummy
which
system.
blew my mind when I was younger.
Probably dummy plugs based on Kaoru instead of dummy plugs based on
Ray. Yeah.
Right.
It's pretty interesting to see how Seele has like control over cowroos and stuff like that. And the Ava series themselves are based off of doves, because in the
depends
Bible,
on which angle you look at them from. If you look at them from above, they're doves. If you look at them from below, they're vultures.
yeah, vultures
They
and doves.
circle
Yeah,
like
yeah,
vultures. That's really
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, they do.
I think that's cool.
And death and rebirth, right? The
Yep.
beauty and life and
true.
death and stuff. But doves are because of the they represented the first sign that the world was inhabitable in Noah's Ark. Which
Yes.
is fun.
True.
So, because didn't a dove bring back the olive branch?
The olive
I'm
branch,
pretty sure it
the
did.
twig
Yeah.
or something.
So that some biblical stuff that Ava gets kind of right sometimes.
Yeah. There's specifically in this movie, there is a lot of biblical, not analogies. What am I trying to say? I can't think of the term. Anyway,
Symbolism.
references, symbolism, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I do like the helicopter design, by the way, on the JSSDF helicopters. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, those look like similar helicopters to in episode 1 that were fighting Sachiko.
Yeah. They look a lot better here, though. So they look cooler.
They do.
They're much better animated here. I think we skipped over. We did. Where Masato. So this was from part 1, where Masato comes to Shinji's rescue and she just murders 3 men.
Oh, we did. We totally skipped that part.
Self-defense. She kills 3 people in self-defense.
Basically, so Shinji's hiding under these stairs, essentially, and he is not doing anything. Nerve is being destroyed, and he's just like, whatever. Complete inaction. Then he's going to be executed point blank by one of the JSSDF soldiers, and Misato comes charging in, completely bad A, just so cool, firing, and manages to kill all of them except for one, and she pins this guy against the wall, and it's just so
she
cool.
echoes something he said. Yeah, she has a bad sister.
He says
line.
he's like,
hey kid, nothing personal, just doing my job. And then she says, hey, nothing personal, buddy. She says something like that. It's different in every dub, it's different in every subtitle, so who knows what she actually said.
Yeah, but still cool.
Yep.
And then she's hauling Shinji around, and I think...
And that's basically her role in the movie now, is just Shinji's legs. She's like, come on, let's go.
She's trying to get Shinji to the Ava unit, to Ava Unit 1, so that he can join Asuka in fighting. That's like her goal.
Her goal, yeah. And she just tells him flat out, you have to destroy the Ava series, which is almost like one of those motivational moments where they're setting up a core question or a dramatic question or whatever of that's the point of the movie, is to destroy the Ava series. Once you destroy the Ava series, you win the day, right? That's almost setting that up.
Yeah.
But that's not what the movie's about at all. So it's almost a red herring, really, is what it is.
Shinji is... I mean, it would be if Shinji didn't, actually wasn't so completely out of it.
Kind of, yeah.
It would be the goal if if Shinji wasn't dealing with his emotional problems. He's just like, the Ava series, it's whatever.
Ava what?
They're just...
I don't care.
They're there.
I just want to sit here and mope.
Misato's like, I care.
I
care.
End of the
world.
She's being real harsh with him, though. He's like a kid. He's been through a lot, and she's like, you gotta come. You gotta do this. And it's her way of motivating him, I think.
I know in one of the versions she emasculates him, right? Where she's just like, they're in the parking garage, and she's just like, stop acting like a girl, and like hiding behind people's skirts and whatever. And she basically tells him to man up. I don't know if that's accurate to the Japanese, but
what version that was, but I do remember something like that. Yeah.
She tries her best.
I think she says hiding behind the skirts of a girl at a time like this. I think she says something like that. And I think that's in the subtitles, actually. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure she is like emasculating him. She's trying everything in the book to get him to do something.
She tries everything.
Yeah, like everything.
Everything.
She tries insulting him. She also tries telling him what's up for the first time.
Yeah.
Like she delivers this exposition sequence.
She has a monologue, basically.
Yeah. We talked in the last episode about fish out of water, and Shinji is acting as the fish out of water here, and she's telling him look, this is the history of the Avas and the angels, and here's our relationship to the angels. Like, humanity is related to them, and whatever. And she's letting Shinji know about it, and he still doesn't care. He still
doesn't
can't
care.
will himself to be like involved at all. So
She tries to explain everything to him. She treats him like an adult. She treats him like a kid.
She tries to treat him like a kid. Yeah. She's just trying every tactic she can think of to motivate this guy, and he's completely refusing.
Yeah,
So.
and it's this whole movie is kind of about failing. It's really about failing, I think. It's about failure, just like Last Jedi.
It's about failure, and that's what makes it so powerful.
That's what makes it so powerful. Because the more Masato pushes him, the more Shinji doesn't want to do anything, I think.
Yeah, it's she's trying to stick a square block through a round hole, and it's just not really
and
working.
Then she's talking to Asuka, and she gives her the same order. She's like, destroy the Ava series. That's the objective of the movie. Destroy the Ava series, and then we win.
Asuka's like, heck yeah. I'm in it.
Well, she's like, that's a big request for someone who just got out of a coma. Tall order for someone who just got out of a coma, isn't it? She says like that or something. But Masato's also really kind of disgusted with Shinji a little bit, which is a little bad. She's not really motivating him, I think.
Well, it's probably frustrating from her perspective,
it
right?
It is. I'm not judging her too harshly. It's just yeah. I don't hate Masato for this. It's just like, ooh. He's just a kid. I just feel bad. I feel bad for Shinji. I think that's what it is.
I'm just saying that they also had cameras in the hospital room. Like, it flashes to Asuka on the bed, so they can see what's going on.
Oh God!
I'm just saying.
I don't know if she reviewed the footage though. So
maybe maybe she's in the know.
Maybe. Oh,
I'd be a little disgusted by that too.
I mean, so she criticizes him for his bad behavior by not being so great herself. Well, she also just says things like, "You hate yourself, don't you?" And I'm like, this isn't the time for that, Masato. Why are you saying that to him? Like, why are you trying to get in his head? You just need him to do. If you just need him to do this thing, it's not the time to have a sit down.
Well, if she doesn't know why he's behaving the way she is, she would assume that it's because of Kaoru. Like, true. And I think that pisses her off a little bit because Kaoru is the enemy in her eyes. Like,
it's
he's an angel.
Bootstrap boomer stuff that she likes to do, where she's like,
she's just a Gen Xer. It's fine.
She's a Gen Xer, but yeah, we figured that out in a podcast that they're Gen Xers. Masato has this thing, and I think this is valid. That I might have mentioned this before, that she thinks, I got through this by not thinking about it. I got through this by just moving on in my life and leaving all that bad stuff behind me. That's what you need to do. It worked for me. It'll work for you. So, and she partly does that to justify her own feelings and to say, if it didn't work, am I still paralyzed? Am I still bad? I think that's part of it.
Just push it down. Because Misato's coping mechanism is just to push it down. It's not really to resolve things. And that's this is a criticism a little bit of, like I was talking about like Japanese culture, because they love to do that. They love to be like, you have problems, push it down. Like
cope and move on.
Yeah, I mean, this is an American thing too, especially with males and toxic masculinity, right? Where it's like, suck it up, push it down, that sort of thing.
Don't work it out.
And it's not healthy, no matter what culture it comes from, and or what the reasons are, but that's how she's sort of she's formed a mask of security that has helped her function in day-to-day life, but it's not truly like, it doesn't have like, she's not healed really from a lot of the trauma. That's why she carries around the cross necklace too. It's because it's the burden. It's literally, how Jesus had to carry the cross, the burden to his own crucifixion. That's basically what she's doing, is like carrying the burden of her father and his expectations and this like whole vendetta against the angels and everything. And and so she's just not resolved. Like, Kaji is a manifestation of her obsession with her trauma in some ways. It's like he's like a healthier way to sort of sort through her complicated feelings about her dad.
Yeah.
but it's not totally healthy. You know what I mean? It's like
It's not healthy at all, I don't think.
there's
But
just not enough. She needs to have more resolution about a lot of things, and
well, she needs to
and
accept that she's not going to have closure with her father, and it doesn't matter.
yeah,
Destroying the angels isn't going to really change anything or fix anything.
and and that's what her connection with Shinji is, right? Where Shinji's like all up in arms about his dad and everything like that too, and so she relates to him because of that reason. And Misato doesn't resolve her issues with her father, but is really plagued by that. And Shinji doesn't resolve his issues with his father, but is able to kind of let go. And that's like one of the
The
big
only
differences.
there's at least I'd say there's 5 parent-child relationships in this movie, and only one of them really has a
Yeah.
positive resolution, and that's Asuka's.
Yeah.
She's the only one who connects with her estranged parent.
Misato is like an adoptive mother in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And at the end, they have this like confrontation, right? Are we ready to talk about the Misato?
Well, I was
elevator
going to
scene?
say this is the 3rd most uncomfortable scene in the movie. It's kind of hard to talk about. I feel very uncomfortable talking about it. But Masato, because I've had conversations with people who are very bothered by this scene, where Masato gives Shinji a little, not a little kiss, she gives him a big smackaroonie and tells him, "That was a grown-up kiss. We'll finish the rest when you get back." And she pushes him on the elevator. This is, particularly in a Western context, this is literal, it's not quite rape, but it's that's not the word I should use.
Grooming, right? That's
It's grooming to a degree, yeah. These are great words to use for the YouTube algorithm.
Right. Yeah.
But it's kind of that. But the thing to keep in mind with this scene is that Masato is dying. When she says, "We'll finish the rest when you get back," there is no getting back.
She has no intention of that at all. She knows she's dead. And
Yeah.
it's another desperate ploy to sort of try and do another tactic to connect
Just
to him
another
because he's
thing.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she herself is somebody who is the most sexually open character in the series for sure.
To a degree.
And she uses sexuality as a way to express herself and deal with her emotions. And so she's thinking, hopefully, if nothing else worked, maybe this will work. F it. This is what works for me. And so it's kind of, I think that she has no intention of like having this dynamic move forward. She is just trying a different tactic in a desperate attempt.
She's also a bit like Asuka in that she will objectify herself to get attention a little bit. Like, I'm not shaming her for that, but like she does believe that like, oh, all boys are horny, right? Because a lot of the time she is worried about like Shinji's sexuality. Like, oh, is he not interested in girls? Is he not? Is he not?
Is he a homosexual?
Is he a homosexual? Is he a virgin? Like, she's worried. She doesn't say that, but like she's worried. She's concerned about that to a degree. As a mother figure, I guess, is he having like normal development? I guess is what she's thinking about. But it's part of that, and I think she thinks like, man, if I said I'll do like, but like they literally had a scene in the series where this happened, and he reacted badly. So she's just throwing things at the wall, I guess.
I don't personally. I have never interpreted as somebody who like was preyed upon by an adult in my youth. I've never felt bothered by this or that it was particularly like she is an actual predator. I think that there is a lot of argument to the contrary.
I don't think she exhibits predatory behavior. I don't think she.
No, and I don't think the combing of the hair, as so to speak, is necessarily like something she was trying to do at all.
No,
like...
I don't think she's trying to take advantage of him. I think she's sort of exploiting him, but not in a I want to control you way. In a I need something from you that's very specific, and this is, or I want to help you, and this is the only way I know how to help you. And that would be very complicated for Shinji. Shinji is still a victim, but I think attributing a negative context to her behavior isn't quite as accurate as saying Shinji is a victim of child abuse. That's more
I mean,
accurate.
I don't think that this is a good thing at all.
No.
Like even in the context of the movie, it's extremely tragic. Like that she really couldn't be a mother for Shinji, and so she threw that out in this instance to try something else. And it is sort of tragic in a way that she did jump the shark by doing this.
She didn't
And
jump the shark, but
giving
yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
like she threw the baby into the wall. I don't know what you call it, but it's just it's not good. She gives him the cross, which represents her burden, and she's giving him a burden now, like
She's
and a
burdening
new
him.
trauma essentially to like
I need to
grapple
avenge
with.
Masada with the angels.
She's hoping to motivate him, right? Like this is
That's
what
the main
motivated
thing.
her. This is what motivated her and gave her strength, and she's trying to do the same, but it just doesn't work because she is not Shinji, and her tactics aren't healthy either.
It,
And it's like, and instead, it's just trauma and burden, and
it's also
so yeah,
it's also about generational trauma because she's literally giving him the cross that
it
her
is cross
father,
generational
yeah,
trauma.
her father
Yeah,
gave her. So she's literally passing it forward. She's literally like, my father scarred me because he was distant and abusive, and now you have to carry that burden too, Shinji. Here you go, have fun.
it's like do it for me. Here's my burden. Here's everything. Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
that's the cross, and she shoves him in the elevator, and it closes in the same way
yeah,
that
her
her
pod.
dad shoved her in the pod and
Yeah,
closed the pod. So it's all just like cyclical and cycles, which is I think one of the themes of Ava in general is like cycles of abuse and things like
absolutely.
that. And it's not that Misato wants to be abusive or toxic. It's just
No,
it happened. It happened.
It
The
happened.
circumstances.
It's also that like
So
when we watch fiction, the people we watch don't have to be perfect. Just because something is featured in a story doesn't make it doesn't mean the story is exemplifying it. And like if you're not comfortable with something, obviously don't watch that thing. But these things happen in reality, so art is going to reflect reality too. So this is a complicated situation that you can see from multiple perspectives, even if they're bad. Like you can watch like people can. This is the weird thing to me. People can watch a story about a murderer and feel sorry for that murderer, but the second it becomes about like sexual assault or something like that, and I think there's a lot of reasons for this that are valid, suddenly that's crossing a line. They shouldn't do that. That's interesting to me.
I think our culture is very like Roman and war based, and so we're like conditioned to be used to violence.
Yeah.
Whereas with sexual violence, it's more repugnant or repulsive,
Yeah.
even though it's not in it. Okay, I'm going to say this as somebody who is a victim of like sexual assault and sexual violence. I think I would murder is worse. I think violence, like straight up, like taking someone's life and ending it, is worse.
I
But
don't
that's
think it
treating
matters if
such
it's worse or
casualty.
I don't think it's worse or better. That's not really what I'm getting. I don't think we have to make that evaluation or that
No,
judgment.
I mean, this isn't.
I'm not
like,
judging you either. I'm
yeah,
just
this isn't the
saying
trauma
yeah.
Olympics or whatever.
No,
but
it's not the trauma Olympics. It's like
but I am saying that there's a hypocrisy to our culture in that
yeah.
way that
There's
it's
an
like
inconsistency, I think. Or it's not even an
yeah.
inconsistency. I'm not trying to evaluate why people feel that way, why murder is more palatable in a way to people than sexual violence is.
I'll just say like dealing with it is really hard, but it
Mm-hmm.
can be resolved, and there can be like a
Yeah.
positive resolution to a lot of that kind of negativity. Whereas like torture and murder manifests in different ways that can
Yeah.
be sometimes more intense. And in the case of murder, it's just like you're gone.
Yeah. Just anyway, my original point
Yeah.
was that is viewable, and I can say that's bad, but I feel bad for the person. You can watch The Boys and look at all these people getting murdered, and you're kind of desensitized to it a little bit, but then you watch, like, you see some sexual violence, and you're like, oh my god, they went there. It's just interesting. It's just interesting. I'm merely observing that.
I think
I'm very uncomfortable talking about this. Go on, sorry, what?
I just think it's important for art to be able to explore those types of things in a way that is like serious and earnest.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those examples where
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think it's doing this to approve of it. I think it's doing it to get you to think, and And in the case of boys and men who are assaulted by women, because this happens,
Yeah.
that gets dismissed as like, oh, you know, he scored or
He
something like
scored,
that.
yeah.
And this is a situation where we see that, and it's scarring. And so I think it's important that this represented male trauma, where it's not treated as like, oh, Shinji got up and he just saved the day after this, and this totally worked. And it's like, you know, like
Yeah.
that sort of thing, where that would be approving of it and an exploration into some actually dark places.
Yeah.
And some anime does do that, where it portrays like women, older women, preying upon younger men as like okay, and this is not one of those instances.
No,
So
it's
I
not.
think, yeah,
It doesn't motivate him, is the thing. And
it doesn't work.
and
I
she
think
thinks it's going to, is the thing that's kind of messed up. And it shows how messed up she is. She is just like Shinji, which she says it in, does she say it in 25 in the show, in the end of series? She says something like, I'm just like Shinji. I'm just as bad, or something like that. I think
remember
it's
her
in the
saying
actual
that.
show. I think it's in the actual show. But she says that, and she's acting just like Shinji here. She is, it's a defilement. It's another defilement of.
Yeah, I would say this is her equivalent of the earlier scene with Shinji and Asuka, essentially, which is an interesting parallel as well, because Misato and Shinji are kind of deuteragonists of the show, I'd argue. They're the first two characters introduced, and some of the most important. And like, even though Misato dies here,
Yes.
I would say that her presence is like permeates the second half and the latter of the film anyway, because like Shinji is he has that cross necklace throughout the whole film, and like
Yeah.
it's illustrating what's on his mind in regards
He's
to
carrying
her as well.
I think he
So.
knows she's dead too. I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he feels he's got the blood on the lips and stuff like that, which is a really effed up, like lipstick type of like marking, right? Where it's like when someone kisses you, they leave the lipstick mark or whatever.
But it's
And
blood.
it's ironic because in the very first scene that we see, where with Misato, you know, Shinji has this picture of Misato, and he's got
Yeah.
the lipstick kiss on the picture,
And it says,
and it's like
pretty sweet, huh? Or something like that on the.
yeah, and then she actually kisses him, and it's like the lipstick mark again, but blood this time, and it's like death, and
birth.
he's even more traumatized by that, because it's that whole like not only is this scarring, but now I have to live with the fact that she's actually dead, and like
Uh-huh.
I have nobody.
I have nobody. She was there, and she was pushing me,
Yeah.
because that's what he wanted too. But I guess he didn't know how to react to it. And then he's just sitting alone on the elevator now. He's still in the Shinji pose. Not the chair pose. He's got two poses. He's got the Shinji chair pose and the Shinji on the floor pose. He's in the Shinji on the floor pose.
It's curl up and cry and cry
Curl up
some
and,
more.
and mope. Not even crying. He's not even, because he's not expressing himself. He expresses himself later.
He's
though.
dry heaving and like I think he's crying in the scene.
Oh, yeah, he's crying in
Yeah.
this. Yeah, he's crying when he's standing up. He starts crying after he sees the blood, I think. But then he goes down into the Shinji pose, the Shinji floor pose. And then we see Misato's last moments. She's dying. She's thinking about all the mistakes she's made. She's thinking about all the things she's done wrong. She probably hates herself a little bit too here. And she's killed, not by bleeding out, but by an explosion, just to make sure it's as accessible
Tearing
as
her
possible.
apart, and like, you know, this is a fun piece of trivia that's been pointed out before, but I'll point it out here, which is like if you move frame by frame, you can see her body splitting in half from the explosion.
That happened in Beast Wars too, actually. But anyway.
pretty grisly.
You can. This is off topic, but in Beast Wars, when Optimus Primal dies in the first season, if you freeze frame, you can see his like destroyed head flying past the screen, and I'm like, this aired at like 8:00 in the evening for like 10-year-olds, and he's the main character. Anyway, so my point is, Beast Wars is just as metal as the end of Evangelion.
Optimus Prime hovering over Bumblebee's bed is ready.
It's Prime Day. We have to celebrate. Oh my god, that was Primal. That's a different character. He's the. He's his descendant or something. Anyway,
So we have a fight scene with
this is where everything
Asuka
changes. This, by the way, this is the end of Act 3. If we look at the first half of the movie as a 4-act TV structure, this is the end of Act 3 or we theorize it's the end of Act 3 where Masato explodes. Because it's almost perfectly... go on, sorry.
It's the shift back to darkness, right?
Yes.
It's like the hope is extinguished again. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, because this is a bookend almost. So Act 3 ends with the death of Masato, but Act 3 ends with the death of Masato. Act 4 begins with Ritsuko confronting Gendo and the death of Ritsuko. So there's almost the two kind of mother figures of the show, who are horrible mothers.
Horrible. Yeah, well, you could argue that Ritsuko is Rei's mother, right? Like, in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like, Ritsuko is, Rei's mother that rejects Rei. Like, it's really...
She helped create her, so... and then Gendo,
she did help create her.
Third mother. Or Fuyutsuki, not Gendo. Fuyutsuki is the other mother. Yeah, so so then we have this bit where she's pointing the gun and she's like, I'm going to take out this whole facility. Earlier when I was hacking into the Magi, I put in a new program and it's going to just blow it. I don't think she actually says that, but like it's inferred that she's going to self-destruct the whole facility and kill everybody. But Caspar betrayed her. How could he choose?
Caspar betrayed me.
Caspar betrayed me.
How could you choose your lover over me?
I do have to say, I like the Netflix dub, but I miss the campiness. I miss the exaggeration. It's
yeah. I don't know who voiced Ritsuko originally, but she was pretty funny.
Ulu. Her name was Sue Ulu.
I'm sorry.
She's great. She's good in this movie, honestly.
Your cadence is iconic.
It's iconic. I love it too. And she's good in this movie, honestly. She does a good job with the intensity of it.
He expects me to jump whenever he calls.
It's such a good tone.
It's Ritsuko's voice acting in the original ADV dub is some of the most memorable and quotable and fun like lines in the whole movie. So authentically would not change.
I think we'll talk about this in part 3 maybe, but like I love the ADV dub of End of Evangelion. I don't agree with every decision. I think some of it's really self-indulgent and silly, and I don't like that. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I love the overall quality of the movie, of the dub as a whole.
It's very watchable.
It's very watchable. And it's very good. Some actors in this are like stellar, like really good. I almost made a video, I think, called like the best 10 anime dubs of all time or something, or my favorite 10 anime dubs of all time, and you helped me with that. And this was like number 2 or something. I think Black Lagoon was number 1 or something. But yeah, so I really like the ADV dub of End of Evangelion.
Yeah, it's got some hokiness, some inaccuracy. I wouldn't recommend that being the first watch of EOE, but like a second or subsequent watches, if you want a fun time, I'd say go for the dub. It's definitely worth watching. We'll talk about it more later.
I don't even I don't need that qualifier. I just really like the dub. The inaccuracies and the silliness.
I would say some sound effects are
That's what I was talking about, but I didn't want to mention it specifically so that we didn't.
We won't go into it.
We won't go into it. We didn't need Hit Him Again and the jelly sound. That was really self-indulgent and silly, but it does not take away from the rest of the movie. It's silly when people overreact to that and act like, oh my god, it ruins the movie. It's like 5 seconds, guys. It's not a big deal. Anyway.
It doesn't ruin the movie, but it's, but...
I said it when I don't agree with the choice. That's all there is to say about it. Otherwise, we're just ragging on Amanda Win-Lee.
No, we're not.
I know, but if we go into it too much, we are. I love Amanda Win-Lee, by the way.
Amanda's a tough cookie.
Amanda Win-Lee is so cool. I love Amanda Win-Lee. Follow her on Twitter. If you're listening to this.
Amanda, if you're listening, we love you. Please.
Call us, please.
Do not this... Yeah, we're not dissing you.
If you want to see like Carrie Fisher-esque swear-laden tweets calling people who deserve it out, follow Amanda Win-Lee on Twitter. Anyway.
Moving on.
She's very talented. Anyway, I'm going to end on that. Amanda Win-Lee's very talented. Where are we?
So, Ritsuko, Asuka versus MP Avas.
Oh, wait. No, we're not there yet. We still have Ritsuko Akagi. So Gendo has this line here about Ritsuko Akagi. The truth is, which is the another iconic. Just gonna keep coming back to the dub. Ritsuko Akagi. The truth is, and then he mouths something, which is such a good read by Tristan McAvery. So good. I love the line. Ritsuko Akagi. The truth is. That's so matter of fact. The truth of life. What is he saying? The truth of life. The truth of their relationship. The truth of humanity. The truth is, if you put water at 0 degrees Celsius, it will freeze. And then, there's memes about this.
I think the two plausible things for me, like I know people say like I need you is one of them. I don't think that's likely personally. I think the truth is that I really did love your mother.
I really did love your mother, or I really did love you. It's one of those.
Yes,
I think.
those are the two. I think. Yeah.
But I think it's amazing that you can make this meme where he says just literally anything. And they made an observation in the director's commentary, actually, the ADV dub director's commentary, where they said it doesn't matter what he said. He lied. He probably lied. Ritsuko says he lied.
Yeah. It probably is her mother though, because like Ritsuko was betrayed by her mother's AI for herself as a woman, and it would make sense for him to say
even
like
your mother always loved you. That's what he maybe said.
Yeah,
there are so many valid interpretations. I just love this moment.
It's like the truth is I really did love her or something, and then she's like, you liar, because he loves Yui, or it's like your mother really does love you or something like that, or whatever. I don't know.
I like your mother always loved you because it ties into the parental element of the story.
Your mother did really love you, or something like that, and it's like, and then she's like, you liar or whatever. Yeah, it's really. You get it. It has to be one of those ones, and you'd get it. Like, but the point is, Ano did this just to F with us and
partly
and get us talking about it.
It intrigues you. Okay, we got to get through the rest of this pretty quick now, but so yeah, next scene, big action sequence. This is when the second movement or the second part of the Jesus, my best friend, is playing music on the xylophone or whatever it's called.
It's Air, right? Air is playing.
It's Air. Air's playing at this point. Yes. Okay, so it's
it's Beethoven's Air and G string. Air on the G string.
When does Jesus is my best friend, mein Belut?
Yeah, that happens in the second half of EOE in the live action sequence. But this is Air. Yes, this is Air on G string that's playing during the Asuka fight.
I think I'm confusing tracks.
Yeah, that's fine. But it is also by Johann Sebastian Bach. So that's
okay.
I think both pieces were composed by Bach, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
You feel free to correct me in the comment section. The interesting thing about Air on G string, I think it is supposed to be traditionally played on one violin, and so it's about like somebody who's doing it on their own as like a solo, which is what's happening with Asuka in the fight scene, which I think is really interesting. And it's something usually used for wedding ceremonies.
I'm sorry, I heard it was in Multiverse of Madness. When they're at a wedding, that's when they play. I heard it recently. I'm like, I heard it in something recently.
Right. Yeah. It's used in weddings a lot in replacement for a traditional wedding march. It's kind of like one of those sorts of pieces. And so there is like a fitting quality to it, right? Where again, Ava's about relationships between man and woman. So it's as a representation of that, I think it really works. Where it plays into the larger themes of Ava again. But it also works for Asuka fighting because it is, again, traditionally a solo piece meant to be like somebody acting on their own. And initially it was supposed to snow in this sequence. I read that in production notes to represent that like winter is returning to the world, and that's kind of like a metaphor for like how summer is ending. But they couldn't actually pull it off for one reason or another, and so it was scrapped. And I think the snow motif actually is more, it was used as the white sand at the end of Ava, where it like visually is symbolic of snow, but it's not directly. So
interesting.
kind of interesting production side of things. So I think if it started snowing here, that would be pretty cool. It would be kind of complicated because this is already such a complex action a sequence. I do want to talk about that really quick. The action Mitsuo Iso, as we were talking about before, did the fight choreography for this, and it's so lumbering, so heavy, so impactful. One of the most iconic, visually spectacular action sequences, and it's by giving the Ava units weight. They feel like giants, and it's so brutal and effective. In the way that it's communicated, slow, lots of impact, like crushing through the ground, like showing the debris as it's going along. There's a spectacle to all this that isn't traditional at all. Like usually when you think of action sequences, it's very fast and flashy, which is stuff that Ava does in future entries. But in this one, it is very like limbering, like and
lumbering.
kind of the opposite approach. It flies in the face of convention.
It does.
With an action sequence like this, and it's better
weightless.
for it. And I think that more action should try and homage this, where it's like, oh, if you have a big robot, maybe make it lumbering and heavy.
Yeah, make you feel the weight of what's going on. Is really cool.
Yeah, it feels very visceral.
It's
like two people are fighting.
Something
people.
Batman the Animated
humans.
Series always did too. I think you really felt the weight of the characters in that. Yeah. So we see Aoba, and see the bridge crew at one point here. There's this whole subplot about Maya Ibuki having to use a gun, which is kind of interesting and cool, but is really kind of nothing to say about it. Really, she doesn't want to fire a gun. She has to fire a gun. Nature of humanity, humans versus humans. Blah blah blah. And Aoba has a submachine gun in here, which I think is funny. He's just firing off a submachine gun like gangster style over the over the computer console. But that's about all. I think that's when that's around when Ibuki is looking at the. I think that's when she starts talking about Asuka. So this is like the whole last sequence is kind of beat Shinji. It's Asuka, Shinji, Ibuki, Asuka. Like all of it's kind of tying together here. They're kind of tying everything together. I'm not sure how Shinji can hear Asuka in this sequence.
I think I know, because this is like the bridge, right, where they're launching the AV units, and so it makes sense that everyone's kind of like hearing what's going on, and so if there's like intercom communication between Asuka and everyone, it would make sense that it would be like projected to all of Nerve.
I do like that Asuka's just talking trash about Shinji still. even
where is that useless Shinji?
She's like, you never see him doing this. So she says or something like that. Even self-affirmed, back together with her mother, happy. She's still like, useless Shinji, that idiot. It's really funny.
Asuka is Asuka.
Asuka is Asuka.
So,
in every universe, certain things have things that make them what they are. In all dimensions, Asuka is Asuka. And Shinji can't do anything. He can't come to help her because the Bakelite.
Bakelite, yeah.
Bakelite.
It's plastic, in case anyone was wondering. It's like melted plastic.
It's just literal plastic. It's how they make action figures. They're made out of Bakelite.
Maybe a little irony there, or meta. I don't know.
Oh, that's true, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they make so they use that to encase everything because
Nerve did this
durable
to themselves. By the way, like Nerve did the Bakelite in order to prevent them from getting Ava Unit 1, because Ava Unit 1 is like
I know they
desired.
Yeah, I know they did it. Michael's referring to a note I made here where I wasn't sure if Nerve or the JSSDF encased the Ava unit in Bakelite. It would make more sense if Nerve did it, but I knew they did it in the hallway. But I was kind of thinking, like, why would they cut off access to the Ava unit? They need access to the Ava unit. But,
I mean, I don't think it's really cut off, though, because the thing is that Shinji needs to just get in the entry plug, and I don't think that's covered up. So he's just using it as an excuse more than anything. Because once he gets in the Ava unit, he can just break out of the
once he's in the Ava unit, but I don't know that he can get there.
He's gotta use those legs, do some hiking.
Get up and use them. It
Yeah.
got legs. Stand up and use them. I don't remember if that's an Evangelion reference or not, but anyway, it could be.
No, I think the FMA reference or something.
Oh
But
yeah, it is.
anyway.
It's an FMA. That's FMA.
Uh
Keep walking
um
forward. Uh,
so Shinji is kind of like decides deliberately not to try and get in the AV unit. He's sort of seeing the bakelite as an excuse, I guess. At least that's how I've interpreted
an
it.
impassable
And
obstacle.
Asuka winds up losing in a very tragic, horrifying moment where, in spite of her kind of actualizing to a large degree, she loses anyway. Because one thing about Asuka is that she never truly wins on her own, and this
No.
is no different from everything else. It's kind of like karmic destiny that Asuka wishes she was the best and still winds up losing, even when she is. And it's a lance of an artificial lance of Longinus that comes and hits her square in the face. Uh, and this could be considered a Diabolus Ex Machina. For me, it's probably the most like quote unquote convenient writing moment in the whole movie where oh, this wasn't really established or planted. The false lances of Longinus. It doesn't bother me too much. It's just kind of like a CinemaSins thing, I guess. But it's like how did they make these? Why are there artificial lances of Longinus? Like the Ava series was set up, just not these. So it kind of rubs some people the wrong way. It doesn't rub me the wrong way. I just like acknowledge it and move on, I guess. A Diabolus Ex Machina is almost always preferable to Deus Ex Machina because one is to get the protagonist out of conflict while the other is to put them into conflict, and one is inherently like way more convenient than the other because you're basically putting obstacles for your character even if it's like artificially and so it's like a cheap writing tactic that should be avoided. But a Diabolus Ex Machina is still not as bad as like a Deus Ex Machina. Like if Asuka summoned the Lance of Longinus through some ancient ritual we never heard about or whatever, and then use that to defeat all the Ava series, it would be far more of a writing problem than this moment. But yeah, still not great. Avoid it if you can, writers out there. Diabolus Ex Machinas, don't do it. But it's not the end of the world. Oh wait, it is the end of the world. This is End of Eva. So
Funny
you
little
want to
moment
kind of
here.
yeah, I was gonna ask if
There's
you wanted to talk about like Ava Unit 2's sort of death, whatever.
Oh yeah, there's while she's dying, there's this moment where in English, in the Japanese version, Hyuga goes bazooka like that, and the subtitle is always translated as "Is it going berserk?" And I'm like, it's just he's just speaking English. Like, why are you translating that?
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny. And it's
Asuka's
this is
also
a
bleeding out of her eye socket here, by the way.
ooh,
Um,
that's
which
gruesome.
is yeah, because she's so connected to the Ava unit physically and mentally
Yeah.
that it has physical consequences on her and her like eye
Well,
splits open or something.
the Ava is going berserk, which historically, the one time it's happened, the one time it's happened, Shinji got absorbed by his Ava unit, so they're becoming one, right? So Asuka's probably in the process of that happening to her, and we see this is usually where the Ava unit busts out and beats up everybody, right? But it doesn't happen this time, which I think is
Yeah,
a
the
neat
Ava going
contrast.
berserk is like in episode 2 and 16 and like 19, but this is the first time Ava Unit 2 has ever gone berserk. So, um, and it is true that like they're the most connected when it goes berserk because it's like an extension of yourself. And since she's dying, there's this other iconic shot where she's like reaching up into the sky to try and grab at the sun, and the vultures are up there, and it's like a very primeval sort of shot in my opinion. Like it reminds me of like some sort of mythological moment or something like that. Like I don't know, something Greek, but it's just so like that hand stretching out to try and to kill and reach at these things, and but then she's not able to. It's like very haunting and terrifying, and then she just gets stabbed and all these lances come at her and she's dead. uh and this is a very, very awful moment for a lot of people. Like they're kind of like, wow, this movie hates its audience, and I don't agree with that sentiment, but um, it is a very dark,
Oh, I think it hates its
dramatic.
audience a little bit. This is not a crowd pleaser.
No, I mean it's not a crowd pleaser. I don't. I think it's. I think it's more of like a. I
The
think
whole
it's like more
movie
of
is
a
kind of designed
reprimanding its audience a little bit. I
a
don't think
little
it
bit.
hates
Yeah,
its
it's a
audience,
monkey's paw. It gives I think we talked about this when we first watched it. Like, it gives the audience everything it wanted, but like not in the way they wanted it at all. Like, it's very depressing, which is
yeah.
really cool. I like that aspect of it. So
It's like Asuka is a badass and fights and like is
wins
cool,
and
and
then
but then
loses.
loses. uh like Shinji Shinji is, well, he
Shinji
stops instrumentality and saves the day, and then the epilogue happens.
Shinji's
So
stuff is coming up later. That's in the second half.
yeah.
Um, so everything kind of comes to head at once. Asuka's basically killed by these vulture Ava units that are ripping her apart with their mouths. Rei merges with Lilith at the expense of Gendo. Gendo, the fourth most uncomfortable scene in the movie, where Gendo sticks his hands
That
literally
happens a
inside
little
Rei's
later, I
stomach.
think, right? I mean, isn't that in
No,
the
this
second half
happens
of Yui?
before that, because when Shinji screams is when
Oh,
is
maybe. I don't know. I no, I'm 100% sure that there's the credit sequence first before we see that. But yeah.
why did I put that in
Um
my notes then?
I don't know. But
Hold on.
uh
I have to check this. This is important. Yeah, you're right. Never mind. I don't know why I thought that happened there.
so basically Asuka's dead.
Gendo observes
Um
it. Gendo says Unit 1 must have gone berserk. Unit 1 goes berserk, and then there's a big explosion, and the JSSDF, the hapless dupes that they are all wiped out.
yeah, I mean Shinji sees the final image is like him seeing Asuka's corpse kind of mangled, or like the
The
corpse of
unit,
Unit 2
which mirrors the
mangled,
moment in 19.
and he just shrieks, and that's kind of the ending note for this episode 25 remake. uh because this isn't really like a movie per se, it's more of like a two television show episodes. And we were talking about this earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but it is actually structurally very similar to like Oedipus Rex in terms of its emotional arc.
Yeah. You said it was
um
like Plato, I think.
Yeah, but well, basically, there's this. So there's this author who wrote Slaughterhouse-Five, Kurt Vonnegut. I might have mentioned him in one of the previous episodes of this podcast, but he talked about something called story shapes, which is the emotional journey of kind of like the characters throughout the story.
Mm-hmm.
And this story is like we start off in a kind of bad place. It gets worse, and then there's a rise before it plummets to even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So because that's like kind of Oedipus Rex, where the story of Oedipus is a things are going well, or things are kind of bad, but then things are going well, and then things are really bad, and that's this 25 air.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally the
that's
structure of
it.
it.
This in a nutshell.
Things at the beginning are
So
okay. They finished off all the last of the angels is dead. Things are going pretty well. Then immediately everything goes terribly. Then everything seems to be coming back around because Asuka's like kicking butt, and Masato's getting Shinji the AV unit, and then everything falls off again, and Asuka doesn't succeed. It's
yeah,
basically Asuka's arc really is the one that follows this.
it's a tragedy because Asuka couldn't do it alone,
No.
and she did need Shinji to come and help. Which again plays into the themes of like how man and woman need to like have an understanding and work together. But man's over there being depressed and sulking because he thinks that Shinji gets what he wants but not what he needs, which he wants to just not do anything. And so he doesn't do anything. And then
Yeah.
everything goes terribly. And it's kind of like, no matter how strong Asuka is on her own, they can't do it without doing it together. And Shinji's just unwilling. So it is a tragedy in the truest sense, structurally. It is a tragedy of inaction. So a very interesting thing, given that we don't often think of inaction as having agency, but Shinji is given choices and opportunities to take action so many times, and he is incapable of doing it because he refuses to. He makes every wrong choice in the book, and Misato is dead, Asuka's dead, Ritsuko's dead, Rei is not, but she's basically dead in his mind because of episode 23. So like, Shinji is supremely alone, and we are at our lowest point so far. It'll get even lower.
Yeah.
So,
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would say structurally, the next part is more of like a man in a hole structure, where like things get worse and worse, and it's almost Kafka-esque until there's the
I was just thinking of Kafka-esque as like this meaningless buzzword, but it is a meaningful statement. It's just always what I think they did in a sitcom or something. Oh, it's so Kafka-esque. I don't know. Sorry, go on.
The reason why I say Kafka-esque is because in stories like Metamorphosis, it is about the characters in a terrible state just getting worse, and it is a decline where it's already tragic and it just keeps being more and more tragic. It like something that's Kafka-esque would be like in a lot of Twilight Zone episodes are very Kafka-esque in that way. And so but there is that light that comes, and so towards the end we're going to dig ourselves out of the hole, out of the Kafka pit. But for the second half of End of Eva, look forward to us talking more about Kafka-esqueness.
Yes.
And
look forward to
dark
Kafka. That's how we get him.
things.
Hey guys, next time we're going to be talking about Kafka. And everyone's just like, oh no, talk about him now. Do it now. All the listeners are like, no, now.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
We're leaving you on our a tense thread. Tune in next week for us to talk about Franz Kafka, the industrial complex, and the futility of the working class in our...
I have a really stupid observation to make before we end the podcast. The name of the credit song is Thanatos, and Thanatos is the god of death. Bye, everybody. See you next week.